Welcome to Better Bachelor. This is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. You know, a lot of times we talk about, I've pulled up statistics about dating apps and things like that, and women wanting only the top guys and not settling for anything, and thus they wind their ways just kind of doing the fun thing all the way up until they kind of get into their 30s and things get a little rough for them, and then they start changing their mind. But they actually did a study on this, a U.S. Census, and they made kind of they call it synthetic guy, which is here is what women kind of describe as the perfect guy, and they put that out there, and they kind of did a study based around a man that doesn't exist, and all the things that women want in a guy make this guy that doesn't exist for anyone. And or if he does exist, there's not enough of him around. But it was really interesting because it shows how out of whack they are on all their thoughts of love and marriage and dating. So let's get into the story here, then we'll talk about it a bit. Is there a shortage of men worth marrying? A new research suggests a mismatch between what men offer and what women want. And it makes it sound like, well, men are offering enough then. No, it's just what women want. They're not shooting for the stars, they're shooting for the stars, but they're not landing on the moon. They're shooting for the stars, and they just keep shooting for the stars. So I saw a picture of it was a cat food, and it was in one of our major grocery chains, like a Costco or something like that. It was cat food, just the cat food aisle, and right next to it was a stand that had wine next to it. And I'm like, they know their shoppers, sad cat ladies with wine. Marriage rates are on the decline in the United States and have been for the last few decades. Data offered by the U.S. Census shows that nearly 70% of men and women were married in the 50s, compared to about 50% in 2018, with a near 10% increase during the same time frame of men and women who report never being married. So that means divorce is going down because marriages, even first-time marriages, are going down. There are a number of reasons why this demographic shift, for instance, delayed marriage, more long-term non-committal cohabitation, and perhaps less cultural emphasis on marriage. But might there be other reasons? Let's see. Why aren't women getting married? New research identifies an interesting quirk in the marriage market that might explain declining rates of marriage. Taking an economic approach, the authors argue that there is a fundamental mismatch between available men in the United States, what they have to offer, and what's available, and women in the United States are willing to accept. Maybe they propose women aren't getting married because highly desirable men are taken. So we've talked about this before, that as women's social status rises with a good position in a company, VP, executive marketing director, so on and so forth, as their income increases, no woman wants to date or marry the same. They always want to marry up, but by how much up do they want to marry? Even if it's just a little bit, if you're in the 80th percentile of women, in other words, I am 80% more successful than other women, that usually puts you also, because again, same pay for same job kind of things happening, that puts you 80 percentile above men as well. That means 80% of men aren't available to you. What about those top 20%? Well, not only do you have the top 20% of women going for those 20% of men, but everything below that as well. And that's just money-wise. So you could have a gorgeous, beautiful, attractive, funny, witty, whatever woman that maybe is only making 30% of what some of these women were making. Well, that guy, he doesn't care what you make. He'll go way down here to get that beautiful, funny, attractive woman and marry her because he doesn't need your money. He doesn't care what you make. That takes one out of that top 20% earners, and he's gone. He's off the market. Well, if you do that enough, all of a sudden, these women are, and let's face it too, really, really incredibly beautiful or very attractive women don't develop themselves as much as less attractive women do. It's just a fact, because more attractive women have more opportunities given to them. They have better chances of marrying someone that has more money, and so they don't have to be as successful. Not always, but focusing their analysis on single women, the researchers used data from the American Community Survey to predict the likely characteristics of these women's husbands if they had husbands, and then compared those to characteristics of what is actually available in the single women dating pool. So it looks like they predict what these women want, or what more specifically what they wanted versus what is really available. More specifically, the researchers generated synthetic spouses for the single women in their sample by first matching them with demographically similar women who happened to be married. The synthetic spouses were designed to reflect the characteristics of the husbands of the similar married women, thus assuming women of similar demographics are looking for similar characteristics in their partners. This method offers a starting point for documenting the characteristics single women might be looking for in a partner. So, it sounds like they took a kind of a sample of women and who they're married to, and then they adjusted it based on what these other women that were more successful or doing well for themselves, and kind of adjusted it. And then I think it sounds like they took, I don't know, some polling data and mixed it in there. Let's read on, because they didn't really write that out super clear. The researchers then compared the synthetic spouses, which is what they want, with the real and available men in the United States. And here's where things got interesting. The available men fell short. In other words, women wanted this pretend awesome guy that didn't even technically exist, and there weren't any real men around that met their desires. That'd kind of be similar as me saying, you know what, I really want to own a Ferrari. And they say, well, yeah, great. What do you do for a living? I deliver newspapers and I deliver pizzas. Like, you're never going to own a Ferrari. It's kind of the same disparity here. So how bad is it? According to the study, the kind of men that single women likely would marry if they married, in other words, the synthetic spouses. So if the women, if they would marry, they would need this synthetic spouse, were not only 26% more likely to hold a job and more highly educated, but they also had nearly a 55% higher income than what's available, than what the available men in the U.S. actually make. So in other words, they expected more men to actually hold a higher job and have a higher education and make 55% more income than what the current guys make in the United States on average. So again, it used to be that a six-figure salary was pretty comfortable. And it still is. Let's be real frank about this. I think the breakoff for what they call the happiness scale is about 75,000, which is you make 75,000. That's enough that you don't have to think about how I'm going to pay my bills, how I'm going to get insurance, how I'm going to have a car to drive. That's kind of I don't have to worry about things anymore. And you'll even have enough for retirement. So it's about 75. So you'd think 100 would be good. But now women are starting to inch that up even higher. Because as a woman who makes 80, 90 a year, well, a guy that makes 100, I mean, that's almost what she makes. She wants a guy that does 55% better than her financially. So now he's got to make 160. That is a very slim portion. And again, but the women that make 50 want a guy that at least makes 50, or excuse me, the women that make 50 at least want a guy that makes 80 or 90. They're all leaping 55% better than they are, and that's just in financing alone, not talking about education and everything else. And as we've talked before, 60% of women to 40% of men are graduating high school, so there's a 60-40 disparity. Men aren't even attending at the same rates as women are. So that gap is 20% gap for education. Additional analysis involved a matching process between single women and real available men nationwide, statewide, or within a single woman's public use micro area data to see if these women could theoretically find someone who matches the kind of men they would marry, someone like their synthetic spouse or the stats that they like. In other words, how easy would it be for these single women to find desirable partners? This exercise extended their findings to include: older women have an even smaller dating pool of economically desirable men than younger women, who would have had a slightly easier time finding a suitable partner. Why? Men may date down. So again, if a woman's, say, 35, a 35-year-old man usually will be dating younger. So that leaves her pool being, say, older than 40 or 45 or something like that. Let's see, well-educated women face more of a shortage of economically desirable men than lesser educated women, again, because of the college statistics. In general, it's harder to find an economically desirable man in one's own close geographic area than in the broader nationwide comparison, obviously. Adolescents today still report plans to marry, suggesting the consistent downward trend in marriage rates could reflect undesired singlehood, not necessarily choices to be in the single face of ample desirable options. Of note, the study offers a pattern and potential explanation, but does not show a clear cause and effect relationship in their modeling. Also, as much as we know those people tend to partner with similar others, we do not know the full extent to which the economic potential of men contributes to real-life dating decisions relative to the other important factors, like ability, kindness, good humor. So let's see, did they really say anything about, well, basically it just boils down to the older you are, the less options you have. The higher educated you are, the less options you have, because men date down, and women will not date a guy that is less accomplished, even if they make more money, but that's secondary. So all of a sudden, when women only want to date up, and men traditionally were the breadwinners and working, and that hasn't left. That portion hasn't left what women want, but now women are working, so they want someone better, because again, they want someone to be able to provide. But if I can provide at 50, I want a guy that can provide at 80 or 90 or 100. And what's happening is those percentages start getting very, very slim, because again, you're shooting for guys that are much better. Well, the thing of it is, there's not that many guys out there. Then when you start sprinkling in all the other numbers that we talk about, the sixes, right? 6-pack, 6 foot tall, 6-figure income, they're just so they're basically choosing themselves out of the market. We have another example of that. So yeah, I won't go too long about this, but you get the idea that here's another example of where they're taking raw data. It's not just opinion. It's not just a Tinder study. This is just people at large in the average populace, and they're doing surveys. And women want guys minimum of 55% better, which is, ridiculous, better than they are, not to mention all the other things. So welcome to see, and this is why it's not worth fighting for. That's why we say don't bother fighting for dates and all this other stuff. You get lucky, take it, enjoy it, and take advantage of it, and then be done with it. But don't go chasing after this stuff, because you're chasing after things that don't exist, or is not worth putting any effort into. So guys, I'll leave it there. If you want to support my work, links are below. Thank you for those that have. Like, comment, share. Always want to hear from you. And we'll leave it there. This is Better Bachelor. I'm Joker. And remember, just do your thing, man. Don't worry about the dating scene. It's so messed up. It's unlikely you have a chance anyway.